I mean, that seems like a common theme for a lot of parents, almost be for all
Yeah,
parents,
that's
but
right.
I feel like people can resonate with that where it's like
Yeah,
parents were frustrated with me because I didn't listen or I
right.
was rambunctious or I know I was
Yeah,
like jumping on the walls half the time.
that's right.
And you'll hear, you know, people say that my parents would say these things like, "Oh, after all I've done for you, you don't appreciate me. You
Right.
don't, you
Yeah,
know, you don't listen to me. You're just take advantage of me."
right.
How
That's
that doesn't seem healthy, but
it's
what
not.
what can parents do to realize, okay, kids are going to be kids and maybe it's not this perfect world every day where they're like listening to me and quiet and patient and
Well,
how can parents shift their energy to appreciate bringing life into the world as opposed to needing appreciation from a 5-year-old?
right. So what ends up happening, and Dr. Becky's somebody who I know. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I've had her on.
You've
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
she's
you've had
great.
her on.
She's great.
She's so good. She gets
Parenting, yeah,
she's
yeah.
a big IFS aligned person
Interesting.
too, and so her parenting stuff is so solid. I love what she has to say, and a lot of it is parents often get activated about their kids' behavior because of their own stuff, of their history. And my message is do your work so you don't say, and I've said it, do you know how much I've done for you? I've said it. My parents said it, and I used to say as a kid, I didn't ask to be born. Like that's what I would say to them when they would like shove this appreciation.
Wow.
When I heard myself say it to my kids, I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like how painful to do what was done to your, you know? But when I looked a little deeper, like if I behaved the way my kids were behaving, entitled and not appreciative, I would have gotten beaten. So I want to stop their behavior so it doesn't activate my own.
To want to beat them or hit them or
I
spank
mean, like
them. Or...
stop doing this because it's too uncomfortable for me
Oh,
because it reminds me of my history.
wow.
Do you see that? And so that's the cycle the parents are in that they're not aware of. So when you start doing this stuff to your kids, and everybody does it, unfortunately, then it's like, do your work. I have done more healing in my life through my children than anybody else or any other therapist. Like they have brought this stuff to my attention. You know, I started becoming my father
In the negative ways.
in the negative,
In the wounded ways.
the wounded ways, and that was shot me into therapy for the third time. Is when I had kids and I started yelling at them, and I was like, I grew up with this. The reason I had kids was to give them something else,
Different.
and here I'm doing it. And it was like when
What was inside of you that was doing it?
yeah,
what
because
was that?
when my boys would fight, I have two kind of rambunctious boys. When they would fight, I can remember feeling panic inside because if I yelled and screamed like that, I would have gotten beaten. So every time they fought, my history showed up.
Gosh.
Instead of like, they're boys, come on guys, let's behave. When you're not activated by your history, you're like, hey, you know what? We don't throw toys. If you're upset, use your words. Like there's a way to react when you're not activated.
Yes.
Anytime you lose it, it's about your history. When it's intense, it's yours.
I think I heard, maybe it's Gabor Mate that said, if it's hysterical, it's historical.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
If it's
Same
hysterical,
thing.
it's historical.
Yes, that's correct. And
Because
people don't know that.
Because it's like, if you're seeing a situation,
Yeah.
two kids running around and hitting each other or
Yeah.
stealing something from it and
Yes.
screaming and yelling and Dad, and you're reactive.
Yeah.
It's because you're triggered by an event
Yes.
that you haven't faced and processed fully yet.
Correct.
From your past.
Correct.
Otherwise, it would just be a neutral event. And if it didn't happen to you, or if it didn't trigger you, you just say, hey guys, like break this up, or
That's
what are we
right.
doing? You know, it's like, let's get to your room and
And
take a break.
People don't know that, and people don't want. They're like, it frustrates me that there's so many There's so many books about kids' behavior. There's not many books
parents'
about
behavior.
parents' behavior.
Wow.
Dr. Shafali is another one.
She's great.
She's also very aligned in this,
She's
right?
great, yeah.
You know, she's aligned.
Conscious
in-
parenting is powerful.
huge. And parents are like, these kids are blah, 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 versus, oh, I've got work to do, unresolved
How many
history.
parents do you think in America repeat the patterns of their parents unconsciously and have not done the work to create new tools to parent from a conscious way?
Well, most of us.
Really?
I'm sorry, most of us. I did it. It drove me crazy to be a trauma expert. Like, I teach this for a living. People pay me money and I still did it.
Bro.
And it's because awareness does nothing for change.
Really? Awareness does nothing for
It's
change?
not like that. Not when
Yeah.
it's trauma. Not when it's trauma. Because it comes up inside of you and it takes you over, right? I'm like I do know better. I had so much self-loathing every time I lost it with my kids. I write
Afterwards, like
about
later
this.
that night, you're like,
Oh my-
what am I
hate-
doing? And
Yeah, that's
I'm out of integrity because I'm teaching one thing, but I'm doing the
oh,
opposite.
it's so painful. That's where I got suicidal in my life.
Really?
That's the only times I got suicidal was when I did what was done to me. It was like I would rather be dead
Oh my gosh.
than perpetuate this. I swear. It was so painful. I'm like, and I couldn't help people all day long because my history wasn't being
Right.
activated.
So you could see it from a separate
Huge.
situation and give
Yes.
the best of advice in the world.
Yeah, I know I'm like do appropriate for a living. It's ridiculous. I do, and then yet I saw myself doing it. It was crazy.
When did you start to shift emotionally? It sounds like the body was keeping the score for you
Yeah.
when you had children and for those years. And you would do things that were out of integrity with what you wanted your highest self to do.
That's right. That's
and then
right.
you would beat yourself up and
Yes.
self-loathing and shame and guilt and resentment and all these emotions that don't serve yourself
right.
in becoming better. So what was the process as a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and a trauma therapist for 20, 30 years? What was the process for you to get out of depression, suicidal thoughts, and overwhelm to be more of peace and harmony when kids would act out?
I was like, you're on rinse and repeat, Frank. Like you're on rinse and repeat. How many years of therapy? Like I just did a keynote recently at the network where I'm like, I'm wondering if therapy is the way to go. Like I've been in for 33 years. Like maybe it's not the right way, but it's more about like, this is where you get into resilience. I have been trying. I will never stop trying. I think we're here on this earth in human form to have difficult experiences.
People don't like to hear that.
Sorry. I think we're not only here to have difficult
We could
experiences.
have loving, fun experiences
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
But I think from a soul level, we're here to grow and evolve. And if I have my 3 R's. You repeat it, you repress it, or you repair it. Okay? So I've been one of these people, I don't know why, I'm one of these people who's constantly trying to repair, right? And this is what we do with every moment. We have a choice. We repress it. Most of us repress our trauma. We repeat it over and over again, or we repair it, take advantage of those opportunities, right? And I know, I never knew I was smart because I was criticized a lot. I'm a smart person, I know that. And I still did it because my history was in me. And now I don't, like, I am my kids are 16 and 20. And my son, my oldest, can yell and scream at me like any 20-year-old can. And I don't react anymore. I don't.
How did you learn how to not react, but also not letting a boundary cross over where
like,
someone's
you can't talk to me that way. I'm going to walk out of this room right now. That is really not okay. I'm not going to tolerate this, and I'm not going to engage with you when you're like this. I couldn't do that before.
How did you learn to not let it boil inside of you and think, this
wasn't-
ungrateful child who I've
That's
given my
right.
life to?
I didn't learn it. I healed it. That's what I did. I tried to learn it.
So there's a difference between analytical understanding
Yes.
versus physical wisdom.
That's right. And the physical wisdom is releasing the trauma. The physical wisdom, I don't have to try hard anymore.
Right.
It's not in me. The trauma is not in me. I used to have this crazy startle. My kids, we'd have a trampoline in the backyard. One would jump on me from behind and I'd freak out because of my startle.
It was like a trigger, like if
it was
someone
like,
was a
yeah,
reaction.
it was like, like this. And I would say to them, like, hey, remember Papa said he was hurt when he was younger? That's why he reacts this way. Like, I didn't want them to take responsibility for my reaction, but I still had it.
But you didn't own it, and release it.
I didn't really, at that point, I didn't release it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, now I don't hold startle so much anymore because it was physical. It was the physical abuse I worked on early on, and I released it. And now I don't hold the startle. It's funny. We watched Stranger Things with my youngest son. He loves Stranger Things. It's such a trauma. Talk about
Very
trauma.
dark.
Like,
It's
trauma.
traumatizing.
And my husband's jumping like a Mexican jumping bean, and I wasn't. I'm like, I don't have jump scares anymore like I used to because I released that.
Wow.
So it's like when you release it, you don't get activated by it anymore.
Wow.